Okay, welcome to MarsCon 2021, a virtual science fiction convention, the events of which are going out over the ether this weekend, March 12th to the 14th, and many of the events that have already passed or that are coming up have been saved, so you can listen to them over the course of this weekend. This is the space program in the Biden era, year one. And the moderator, I'm Eric Heidemann. I'm not a scientist, but I am a science fan. The description of the panels: for years, a band of scientists and science fiction for years, a band of scientists and science fans have been paneling at local cons about the course of space exploration and astronomy during the Obama and Trump administrations. This year, we look at developments in the final year of Trump, including the Space Force, and the beginning of the Biden administration. Our distinguished science panelists, Mr. Ben Husett, Bridget Landry, and G. David Nordley. Bridget Landry, why don't you take it first?
Okay. Are we introducing ourselves, or are we talking about?
Go ahead and introduce.
My name is Bridget Landry. I work at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's fine.
The Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. I've worked in spacecraft operations for 30 years, and I'm currently on the InSight lander on Mars, is the team that I'm on.
Okay. And David Nordley?
Yes, I'm Gerald Nordley. I write science fiction as G. David Nordley. That's how many of you in the science fiction community know me. I'm a retired Air Force officer, an astronautical engineer, and a writer.
Okay, and Ben Husett?
Hi, I'm Ben Husett, and I'm past president of the Minnesota Astronomical Society, and we've built several astronomical observatories near the Twin Cities. Encourage you to go to mnastro.org and check them out as soon as the COVID threat passes.
Mic off.
Also
Mic feedback off.
Director of Minnesota Space Frontier Society, a local chapter of the National Space Society and the Mars Society and the Moon Society. We do outreach. We run a science room, which is usually at a MarsCon and a MiniCon and DiversiCon and several other cons. And I encourage you to check that out. It's over in Discord. Put together a little PowerPoint here that we're going to run in just a moment, and it's just sort of pretty pictures that we'll say some words about, and we'll take questions at the end. It's the plan.
Okay, so let's have introductory comments from Bridget Landry.
Oh. Why don't we go with Ben's PowerPoint? I think he's more prepared to speak on this topic.
All right, Ben, is that okay, Ben?
Yeah. Hold on, let me. Okay. And
Biden looks good.
There we go. Okay. You should be seeing a slide with President Biden there.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the cast here. I want to thank everybody for coming today. Want to take a quick moment and note the passing of longtime science room staffer Lauren Nelson, who was also a past president of Minnesota Astronomical Society. In fact, he was one of their founding members, and he died just a couple weeks ago and will be missed. Okay, so on display in the Oval Office right now is a moon rock that was picked up just a couple weeks after then freshman Biden was sworn in, and he's only been in office for 52 days. The current acting NASA Ed administrator. Steve Jurek was a associate Ed administrator appointed by Trump, and the Biden administration is yet to publicly announce, unless they did it today, and I missed it, their nominee for NASA Ed administrator. But Joe Biden has not a stranger to space. Vice President Biden, along with Congressman and then Senator Nelson, under the leadership of the Obama administration and NASA administrator Frank Bolden and Lori Garber, who before becoming associate administrator of NASA was head of the National Space Society. It's been a long time advocate of privatizing space. So they made it, so they tweaked the laws such that SpaceX could come into being and NASA could buy launch services rather than doing it themselves. But it was President Trump and Vice President who was only the second president to actually watch a crewed launch in all the time. Kennedy never. Yes, what? Kennedy never saw a crewed launch. In fact, Nixon was the only one who had ever seen a crewed launch before then.
Wow.
Obama had tried, but they scrubbed the launch, and then his schedule didn't permit him to come back. So this one last summer with SpaceX and Bob and Doug was scrubbed, but they were able to tweak their schedule, and they came back and saw the launch a couple days later. So, of course, Vice President Pence was head of the National Space Council, which was started under Kennedy and Johnson, and then sort of mothballed and then dusted off and mothballed, and the Trump administration brought it back and helped establish space policies. And of course, he never missed a photo op with some new astronaut Kennedys down here, and the InSight lander before it was launched. So, of course, Bob and Doug went up at the end of May. I was slightly distracted, as most people were here in the metro. There was some civil unrest thanks to incident with George Floyd, but it was truly the best of times and the worst of times. Of course, they went up to the International Space Station, which has been up there for over 20 years. They joined these individuals that you see here, and with Expedition 62. And wait, no, that's 62, and then they came along with 63 here. I stand corrected. And they joined 63 and were up there until the fall when they came back. And 64 is the current people in space right now. They're orbiting overhead. And they're scheduled to be up there through April. The exact date, of course, is never really certain until they fire the retro engines to come home. But that's but for planning purposes, that's what they're going with. Now, before that, there's going to be another. Okay, and this is the SpaceX crew that went up. Well, actually, consider a SpaceX sort of like an Uber service now, which NASA just called them and said, yeah, we'd like to get these people and this gear up to a station. So, hopefully near the end of April, the second scheduled crew rotation via a SpaceX will be going up, and they're scheduled for a 180-day mission. We thought we were done buying seats on the Russian Soyuz, and then just a couple weeks ago, NASA said, "Yeah, I mean, we want to hedge our bets," and we convinced the Russians to pull one of their cosmonauts out and put one of our astronauts on board. As a side note, astronaut Hay was a graduate from high school here in St. Louis Park here in the Twin Cities. Of course, SpaceX, it brings up crewed, and it brought up what's called a demo mission 2. A demo mission 1 was an uncrewed test flight, and then mission 1. And they also have an uncrewed cargo version, sort of like the Soyuz and Progress is on the Russian side. And they last year ran their 21st cargo mission up. Of course, the Russian Progresses and Soyuzes continue to go up. The first 3 that you see here went up last year, and Soyuz MS-18, it's a Cyrillic, as shown as the Roman letter C here, would be going up in April, hopefully. Of course, NASA also contracts with Northrop Grumman to bring up an uncrewed cargo module that comes up and parks next to a space station, and then the robot arm reaches out and grabs it and plugs it into a docking module. It doesn't have the ability to dock totally autonomously. It just gets close, and then the robot arm, under astronaut guidance, does the last couple of meters. Same true for the Japanese cargo module. This HTV number 9 will be the last one in this series, and then they're going to come up with a new and improved version. It'll be launched on a bigger booster, but so. And this year, 2021, for the first time in about a decade, we're actually adding more modules onto the space station. The science module was originally supposed to have flown in 07, 08, something like that, and then due to various complications, it was postponed, but they finally got it all worked out, and they'll be launching this large, original Zarya size. So think of this like a big school bus size of a module, and that'll be going up in the summer. And in the fall, they're going to be adding this extra docking module node down here, which is an engineering test, which they hope to then use on their moon exploration and Mars exploration ships that they plan to assemble on orbit. So should be interesting times. Here you can see the modules attached to the bottom of the space station. It'll be taking over what was taken up by the Piers module on the bottom. Here's a counterpart up here, up at the top. Confidence is high that they'll be able to jettison the Piers with the Progress that's currently attached to it, but it's been there for well over a decade, and it's thing, that a smooth metal surface on a smooth metal surface in a vacuum sometimes welds together. So we'll see what happens. On the last Dragon that went up, they brought up in the trunk of the module a new commercial airlock built by Natorox called a Bishop, and it attaches next to the cupola here, and basically they can load modules inside. If you have little microsats that you want to deploy, you can do that from here. They have been doing that from the Japanese module over here, but it's another way to get out these little shoebox-sized microsats. They also have the ability to just take the robot arm and just expose it to space, because a lot of experiments are like, okay, so you got this new thermal material. How well does it survive up to the thermal changes of space and the UV and infrared radiations and micro meteorites and stuff. So it's nice to be able to say, yeah, we know that this material works because it's been out in space for years and years, and we brought back the sample and we know how it works. So, and so it'll be adding that service and functionality. They're going to be adding some new solar panels. After 20 years, the solar panels that are up there have been degraded due to the fact that solar panels kind of degrade, and these have been flying through monoatomic oxygen, which is kind of like ozone that eats away at things. So they're bringing up these new solar panels. The shuttle used to bring up, 2 wings at the same time. This all has to fit inside of the Dragon trunk, and they decided to reuse the gearbox and tracking of the old solar panels and put the new solar panels in front, and they're going to block a little bit of the solar panels, but they figured that it's worth the effort because each new module puts out much more power than the older, larger solar arrays. So, and those will be going up in June, August, and December of this year, hopefully. And then contracts were signed, and there's a new commercial space company based out of Houston, run by former NASA project managers called Axiom, and they're going to be adding some commercial modules onto the front of the International Space Station, where companies can rent rack space and do experiments on board the space station, or bring up tourists. And they're going to have this new bigger cupola down here that people can go into and see the world go by. Now, of course, with all this good stuff, NASA announced just a couple of weeks ago that they're upping their price. They used to charge just $3,000 per kilogram to bring up an experiment to a space station. That price is now up to $20,000 per kilogram. If you have a specimen that you want to bring back home and take a look at it in your lab, they used to charge $6,000 per kilogram for that service. That price goes up to $40,000 per kilogram. And if you want an astronaut to, turn on your experiment or change out a specimen or something like that, that used to be billed at $17,500 per hour, and that price has gone up to $130,000 per hour. So, and if you want to send your own person up there to flip the switches and do the work, then that person will be charged room and board at $22,000 per day for supplies, and $11,250 for air and water and a place to go to the bathroom and a place to sleep. So, we have many satellites in space whose job is sort of look at Earth and keep track of Earth. Some of them are pictured here. Of course, my favorite after the International Space Station, of course, is the Discoverer satellite. And that's because every day it takes pictures of the Earth as seen from space at the Earth-Sun L2 point. So it's about a million miles closer to the Sun than the Earth. And it's got a camera initially designed back in the 90s and then shelved by the W administration and then revitalized under the Obama administration. And the satellite all went away, but they bolted it on to the back of Discoverer. And although Discoverer is looking at the sun, saying incoming solar flares and all of that sort of good warning service, they still have this camera that looks back at Earth and takes these really cool photos of the Earth. And it takes about a dozen to 2 dozen photos every day, and it's all publicly posted on this website down here, Earth, at epic.goddardspaceflightcenter.nasa.gov. Of course, the replacement for shuttle, the revitalized Space Launch System, with its increased 5-segment solid rocket motor was tested last September. Seemed to work out pretty well. But the 4 formerly bolted onto the back of space shuttles engines, the RS-25s, they ran a test in January of this year, and about halfway through the test, the sensors and the computer program said, we're going to shut this down. And they reviewed the data, and they're going to try again for a full-length 8 minutes and change test firing, hopefully later on this month on the 18th. We'll see what happens. But this, is, of course, is something that was supposed to originally have been flying before we retired the shuttle, and it just got delayed and delayed due to engineering problems and budget cuts. So. Of course, this is the way that they had planned on continuing the Artemis program, in which you have the rocket and a lander and the Orion space capsule, which is sort of an upsized Apollo capsule. The Lunar Gateway, which is sort of a way station in orbit around the moon, because SLS just doesn't quite have the oomph to get a spacecraft directly to the pole. And of course, a new spacesuit that's designed to last longer than just a weekend. Can I get some water? Now, in January, they were supposed to down select from 3 contractors down to 2, but that decision has been postponed until next month. With the goal, of course, of returning men and women. Yes?
Are you still going? Or?
Yeah, I'm still going. So, and so they're going to be hopefully, doing, full time, going back to the moon this time to stay, and hopefully somewhere down at the South Pole, which has interesting, hopefully polarized and other really cool science. And Jerry had given a talk just last night about some power options that we had to power a base where the sun doesn't shine. Of course, that's all part of trying to build an infrastructure that gets people and materials up to space and to make some money and make some resources out there. Similar to what is happening currently on the sci-fi TV shows for all mankind, and in the Expanse. Hold on just a moment here. Excuse me. Of course, SpaceX is trying to make some money by going into the ISP, the Internet Service Provider business. They're launching literally thousands of satellites. They now own and control a quarter of all the satellites in Earth orbit. And when they first launch, it goes in sort of a cluster like this, and then they slowly space them out. If you see this go by, you think you're looking at Santa and his reindeer. They are doing their best to try to make it the satellites not quite so bright, but I have seen them go by several times. Of course, the amateur astronomers are all complaining because the little star trails the little satellite streaks are messing up their astro photographs, because they're going by pretty much every 10 minutes, just like a bus. Of course, SpaceX has a stable of boosters. And they've been launching, and several of their boosters have made it to space 7-8 times. They lost one just a couple flights ago. I see a question a ways back that was texted in. Someone inquired, is the new pricing inviting competition? I would say that is probably a yes. That is, however, if you do want to run a commercial science payload, and not just a pure research university type of experiment. If you're working for a university and you're doing research, then the old pricing still stays in effect. But if you're 3M and you want to do a research, or your McDonald's, Douglas, or Johnson and Johnson or something, then the commercial rates apply. Of course, back in 1930, there was a sci-fi film called Just Imagine. It was the first sci-fi film with sound. It was the first sci-fi film that was a musical. I encourage you to find it if you can. But the prop ship they made for that movie was later repurposed by the Flash Gordon series in 1936, and it became quite popular with its sort of phallic shape with Roman candles coming out the back, and that's kind of where we are now with the SpaceX type of ships they're going on with their Starship design. And Elon Musk and SpaceX are cranking these out. They've got a stable of them. They have yet to fly it on a booster. They're just doing little short hops that go up tens of thousands of feet and then come back and try to land. But once they get it up and boosted, it's be very much of a good booster rocket for getting people and cargo up into space. Excuse me. The rockets are not to scale, but the payloads are so. So for the, for the, yes, for the Falcon 9, yes, a question? Okay, for the Falcon 9.
Speakers. Wait.
Yes, Eric, what?
Just take a couple more minutes, and then we need to get on to other.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, moving along quite quickly here. You can see some of the past starships and some upcoming starships in their design. They go up, they come down. Unfortunately, they're 0 for 3. Each one has had a rapid unscheduled disassembly, as Elon Musk likes to call it. The most recent one did land and did sit on the ground for several minutes before it too did explode. But hopefully they will eventually get the bugs worked out, and they might have a flight later on this month. Of course, Hubble Space Telescope is up there. It had a safing event in which a software patch to fix a failing gyro tried to write to some memory that it shouldn't have, so everything shut down. They went into safing mode. They just came back out. But when it went into safe mode, it did not shut the little door here. And they're trying to figure out exactly why all that happened. They found that the primary motor wouldn't shut the door, but the backup motor works just fine. So they reconfigured things such that the primary and backup motors have been swapped out as far as their designations. Of course, hopefully, after long last, the James Webb Space Telescope will be launched in October by ESA and Ariane, and it'll be going out to the Earth Moon L2 point behind the moon and sort of go into an orbit back there. And hopefully this will work. It's been a long time coming, so it's pretty much all boxed up. It's all been checked out. I think it's still in the U.S., but should be scheduled to be shipped down to the launch site in French Guiana shortly for an October launch. And Mars, moving on to Mars. We have 2 active rovers on the surface at the moment, with a third one scheduled to join them from the Chinese. We also have a lander that I know that Bridget has worked on. She gave a really good talk about that this morning. Bridget, do you have any words you'd like to say about InSight? Or
Yeah, InSight is one of the missions that have just been extended. We're in a really focused mode right now. They've decided not to try to get the mole any deeper than it is, but that leaves a significant amount of tether on the surface that they now are going to try to cover up with dirt so that they are not flapping in the breeze. We are also running into some serious power issues currently. We have not had any friendly dust devils to come over and clean off our solar panels. So we're really having a great deal of difficulty getting the power we need to do any of the work that we want to do. And it's kind of a catch-22, because if you don't turn the instruments on, then the instrument box gets cold. And so we have to use enough power to keep the spacecraft warm enough, but not enough that we don't have enough power. It's been very challenging currently, but they got a bump in budget to try to deal with the current problems that they're having. And the other mission that I worked on recently was Juno, and they had been slated to end the mission this summer, this July, and they have now extended the mission. Juno is like Galileo and Cassini in that they can't just be let go as long as they want to. They have to have a definitive end to the mission, that is, be dropped into a giant planet's atmosphere. So by saying we are not going to end the mission this year, we're going to get a lot more science out of it. They've extended it out through 2025, I believe.
Okay. I do have a slide on Juno coming up in a little bit here. So anyway, InSight is also sending back weather reports. And the Curiosity rover, of course, continues to go on trucking. This on day 3,000 and something. It's gone like 15 miles. And I know that Bridget has some words about that too from this morning's presentation.
Yes, I was working half-time on MSL until just recently, and it's going very well. We were very lucky in how we were able to convert to working from home, and lost very little time on the surface due to the shift, and seems to be working just fine.
Okay.
Okay, and of course, just earlier this year, just less than a month ago, Mars 2020 redubbed by kids as Perseverance landed in Jethro, which is sort of this outflow where this river came into this crater. So they have a little river delta. So with the thing of, well, if you, rather than exploring a large section, have a large section come to you. So.
Mm-hmm. It also has the advantage that it's the outflow areas are much smoother and easier to land on.
Yep. There was very dramatic footage that they shot. They put a lot of cameras on this thing, and if you look in the very center of this roll bar here, there's some little computer chips, and if you went to the NASA website, they would put your name, which on the chip. So I know that somewhere there in really teeny tiny little print is my name.
And mine too.
Yes, and also they're bringing this little drone helicopter that's currently nestled underneath the rover, and when they find a good spot for it, they'll drop it off, and it will do some hops and be the first aircraft to fly on Mars.
Yep.
Let's have some remarks from Gerald Nordley.
Okay. I'll transition to that as maybe that little helicopter can blow the arrays off and get the dust off.
That's certainly been proposed.
It has. Very good. I'd like to just go very quickly through that. I expect in the coming year that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration is going to emphasize that aeronautics word a little bit more. And we're going to have a lot more Earth-centered, Earth-looking stuff that was kind of discouraged in the Trump administration is going to come to the fore. I don't know what's going to happen with the National Space Council. Whether Kamala Harris wants that job or not isn't really clear. She has been friendly to minority astronauts, communicating with them, congratulations and all of that. And she has been the senator for a space industry state for a number of years. So she's not in totally unknown territory there. So that's sort of a wait and see. But Joe Biden himself, he was in on the commercial crew stuff from the beginning and is, bit hopeful on that. Another thing that's happened was we've created the U.S. Space Force. The Space Force that Trump wanted was rather bellicose, warfighting Space Force. And I think, while we can't ignore the threat that countries like China have for shooting down satellites, I think we're going to see a more service-oriented Space Force that's looking at things like maintaining the inventory of orbital objects and getting our boosters up and maybe doing some of the I'm losing the word right now, but somebody's got to be watching out for stuff up there. There needs to be a little bit of enforcement capability, a little bit of a service capability, a little bit of rescue capability. And I see the Space Force vacuum. We are all looking forward to, how soon Starship and the big booster evolve, because that capacity is going to make a whole lot of difference in what is affordable in space in coming years. Okay. Bridget, you have anything more?
I just wanted to mention that Biden was very honestly overwhelmed when he was speaking to the Perseverance team. He was very happy for us and very honestly moved by the success that we had with the landing. So that was kind of nice.
The other thing I shared with Ben was Lori Garver's comments. And I think we're going to maybe see some, it's been a big question about whether the SLS is an affordable system and what it's going to cost us. And Lori made some remarks that were not at all favorable to the SLS, and she did it with a smile on her face. And now I'm being extremely optimistic here, but I'm wondering if she knows something. But we will see what happens there. But I think the SLS versus commercial is an ongoing question mark. And it's not a question of defunding SLS. It's a question of not ramping up the funding that it would need to do what they're talking about. Bridget, do you concur?
You know, I know so very little about crewed missions that I really can't venture to say. Someone has a question about what missions might be appropriate for launching from Vandenberg.
Polar. That's launching out of Florida. You have to overfly Cuba, and you have to do a dogleg maneuver to avoid overflying Miami. You can go north, but then you have to avoid the East Coast. So Vandenberg's better placed for launches into those sun synchronous orbits and polar orbits. So we'll see more of that.
Drifting back, wanted to touch briefly, one thing that, yes, all these things are coming, but China is coming up fast on the outside. They currently are operating a lunar rover on the backside of the moon with a relay satellite in the L2 position where the James Webb will be going. And in April or May, they'll be landing their rover on Mars at one of the sites just to the east of where we just landed our latest rover. So
Mars is heating up.
Yes, and they actually have they have built their own space station, and it's put together, and they're attaching it to their booster as we speak, and it should be launched in, I would say, inside of a month or two. So that will be happening out there, and so there will be 2 crewed space stations in the near future.
I'd like to mention my background here for a second. This is the view from in back of the astronauts in the Dragon capsule. And there's screens and all of that. And I'm going to change this just immediately here. Oh, come on, where is it? There it is. Does anybody recognize this?
Looks familiar, but I can't remember.
2001 Space Odyssey.
I wondered if that's what it was.
Oh,
1968. But they've got the glass cockpit. They actually have real glass in this, which I wonder whether spaceships are going to have anymore. But that's, I can get out of the way there. You see the space station and all of that. And if we go back to Dragon, you'll see similar views of the space station on the television screens, and you also see the various glass cockpit and touch screen things that the 2001 A Space Odyssey pioneered. Okay.
I guess we're supposed to wind up in a couple of minutes. Would you each like to take about a minute of closing thoughts?
Nope.
Hold on just a sec here. Let me. People say, should we? Come on. Let's focus. There we go. Should we send robots or humans to explore space? And I say the answer is yes. We need to send both. We need people. I mean, there's not a single robot out there that doesn't have a vast room full of people behind them here on Earth, enabling to do what they do, and Bridget is part of that team. And you need people to do something because, yes, these rovers have gone for miles and miles, but as far as these rovers have gone, and it's taken years, Apollo drove in just one long weekend. So it helps when you have a human there to make quick decisions. So
yeah, they're symbiotic because you're never going to send a human someplace that you haven't sent robots.
Yep.
And So it's, you really need both.
So,
My my sort of druther or hope would be that we send human beings to Deimos or Phobos first, and then come back.
That's going to be a challenge. They're so small.
Oh, we can if we can rendezvous with spacecraft and dock with spacecraft, we could rendezvous and dock with Phobos and Deimos.
No, I didn't mean we couldn't hit them. It's just that what's the point? You're not buying anything by. I mean, you're not getting the stability that you get from a gravity well. There just really isn't enough mass there to make it worthwhile.
Well, we would be looking for resources. So,
Yeah, but
how much resources do we have in Mars orbit that don't have to be brought up from the Mars gravity well to do Mars operations? So, that would be kind of one of the reasons for doing it. And
but you know, if you're landed on the planet, you got the whole planet to deal with, to source from. So it
then
seems
you got to get off it.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like a complication to be landing on Phobos or Deimos.
Okay, well, we have a difference of opinion, but
Agree to disagree.
That's going to be if Phobos and Deimos are asteroids, then that's going to also be pioneering for asteroid mining and asteroid utilization.
Fair point.
They're actually more accessible than a lot of near Earth asteroids.
Yes, that is true.
Yes.
if you have a big enough rocket to make it out to Geosync, you have pretty much all of the rockets you need to make it to Deimos and Phobos. But
yeah, it takes a lot more delta V to get back up from the Mars surface.
We're getting the wrap up. High sign.
okay, so
Okay. Guess we need to call it a panel. Thank you for coming.
thank you, Eric.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you everybody who came to listen to this.
And there's plenty more MarsCon to check out. I know that Bridget will be talking about Juno tomorrow morning. And we've got Discord and we've got YouTube stuff going on, and we've got several gaming things out there. So check it all out, and hopefully we'll see you all in a real hotel this time next year.
Okay.
Bridget, do you recognize? Oh, that